Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Strategic Rest. Well, no, this is Power Nap Live. I've been thinking about our book all the time. And so this is Power Nap Live, my friends. And I am so excited for us to be back here with you guys on another Sunday, ready to talk about how to hop into your week practicing strategic rest. I'm here with, of course, the co-hostess with the mostest, Dr. Kelly Dixon, and we're going to start the same way I always start. Dr. K, how you doing?
I'm doing good. The weather is quite cool, a little rainy where I am in North Carolina. But other than that, I can't complain.
I would like a little. You know what? I'm not gonna even. I ain't gonna even hold you. I don't know what the weather in Texas is doing. I know for sure that it's doing something, but I have not really been outside since I got back from work. So yes, so I have no idea what it's doing out there. I'm sure it's doing something, but well, today I figured we could talk a little bit about kind of the obvious. Today is Mother's Day. Shout out to any of the mamas that are watching with us today or will watch this later, since we have lots of people who catch the replay as well. So happy Mother's Day. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for giving of yourself, all of the things that moms do. But what I wanted to talk about today was maybe reflecting a little bit on specifically how mothers can shape our relationships with rest. You can talk a little bit about if your mom, or how, in the grand scheme of things, how you feel, especially as someone who coaches people. But how do you think mothers shape relationships that people have with rest?
Yeah, I look at motherhood is leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about all the components of a leader, it's very similar to all the components of what we expect or assume or mother showcase, right? Someone who can make decisions for other people, including themselves. Someone who has to take risks, right? Someone who has to be supportive to different people who respond differently, right? Adaptable. Someone who's confident. Someone who's transparent, self-aware. All these things also is equal to motherhood, right? Which is why I often say motherhood is difficult, even though I haven't given birth to anybody's child. But
Both of us are just parents.
right, but I've been called a mother figure often, which is it's like, oh, I'm 39, whatever. But still being called a mother figure often, and I think about the connection of what motherhood means, how much mothers have to endure, because not only are you leading, folks, your children, your household in that manner, but you had to endure for up to 9 months something that you didn't know what to expect once it came, right? And that's leadership, right? That's, having a vision of family, of children, but not knowing exactly how it will happen or when it will happen or what will you do when it comes, right? So it's all tied to leadership. And in all of that, mothers just keep going. And they don't often find time to pause or rest, because if they pause or rest, for some mothers, it's if I pause or rest, then something's not getting done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like it's they have to give themselves permission, or someone has to give them permission to rest.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. And so as I think about motherhood, and seeing it, the mother figures around me, I don't know if I've often seen many of them just rest and let someone else do.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think of so many people that I know, and really their moms survived, right? But for us, it's time for us to change the narrative to thriving, right? We have to rewrite that script of what that looked like. I didn't even really realize until today, no, not really today, but until recently, how blessed I was to have a mom that modeled rest. I
Mm-hmm.
truly didn't realize how rare that was until I got much older,
Right.
right? Um, because I really did have a mom. I do have a mom. Shout out, hey Emily. She gonna kill me for saying Emily, but um, my mom modeled rest. She really did. So we talk about this in the book a little bit, or I talk about this in my portion of the book, kind of talking about our relationship. And when I say our book, for folks who are new, Dr. K and I wrote a book together called Strategic Rest and Leadership, which is the foundation for our show today. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. You can get it anywhere books are sold. But I talk about it from a religious standpoint, but also my mom just, and I'm not sure, I feel like I am sure my grandmother, even though she worked hard, she also modeled rest. Like she had this little chair, and I would tell you that was my refuge. And we talk about that in the book too. That when I would cut up or do something, all I had to do, I knew all I had to do was make it to that chair where she was sitting, and I was going to be protected, right? If I did something and my mom was getting on to me, I was like, I got to make it to the chair, and she's going to take care of me,
Yeah.
and make sure I don't get in trouble. Okay. But my mom really did model rest from a strategic, I mean, from a religious standpoint, because the Sabbath for us was always important. So she rested. Um, Naps were very important in our house, if that makes sense. But also from a partnership standpoint, she also had the strategic thought to also marry a man that worked hard but valued rest not only for himself but for her.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things. And we talk about that in community. And it wasn't until right now my eyes are kind of watering a little bit because I never realized that until I just said that. But she married a man that also valued rest for her. And so because I saw it, I live it. I married a man who values rest for me highly. You know that and have seen it. And I didn't even know when I was thinking about marriage to have that as one of the pieces, right? Of something that I wanted, but it was modeled for me that
Yeah.
someone in my community, specifically the person that I've joined my life with, I saw my mom join her life with someone who valued rest for her. Therefore, I also did that. And what that does for, oh my goodness, just for generations to me is wow. I'm almost overtaken to think about it.
Yeah. So when you mention religious, it made me think of the mothers of the church.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was a highly visible mother of the church,
Mm,
and I sit and I think about how so many people would come to her just to be in her presence, to talk to her, etc. And they were all different. Everyone had a different need. They responded different. You know, you had to talk to everybody a little differently. And she never wavered.
yes.
She went in every situation with love, with care. Whether she agreed with the person or not, she just went in with it. And that's a level of maturity and adaptability, of diversity in working with people, even in the space of motherhood. I think about the times that I saw her most happy when people were around her, family, church folks, that was just being them, right?
Mm,
It wasn't a sense of fakeness, etc. They was just being good, bad, and different. And she would just sit. My grandma, she would just sit and just look around and smile. Didn't have to say much. And if you came and had a conversation, she'd have a conversation. But outside of that, she would just sit and just watch and just If she saw something needed to be done, she'll say, "Hey, can you?" Or she'll do it. And it was just a posture that you don't see often now, right? And I think that type of posture is a posture of self confidence that people do not know how to articulate and define. It is so rare. And I'm thankful that that's part of the gift that she's given me. When people say, "How can you remain calm in the midst of chaos?" And it's like, because I had a great teacher.
Mm,
Right?
my
And
goodness.
how can you be rested in spaces where people are so unrested? Because I had a great teacher, who
Yes.
was a mother, who was my grandmother, mother of a church, and so I think about this concept of rest really being tied to a level of confidence that has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with your education, your degree, your experiences. It's just a posture, right? And people choose to walk upright and some people choose to slouch. And it's just the same is true for rest. Some people choose to rest and some people choose not to rest. It's a posture, and it's a posture that's full of confidence. And so I think about that intersection of leadership and motherhood, and seeing it, of course, you don't know then what you know now, but seeing it now through the lens of my paternal grandmother, that's what that was.
Absolutely. A posture, right? Which means that we choose to do it. To me, that's so important. And also, listen, to me, I always laugh because people like to often kind of glorify how hard people in generations before us worked,
Yeah.
right? But oftentimes they gloss past the fact that they also were genius in ways to figure out how to rest when rest was something that was constantly being taken from them. When you said mothers of the church, I think about how many times I heard an older lady go, sit down somewhere. They will tell you to sit down. And we gloss past that part because so much of the working, the cooking, the keeping, the watching, the praying that they did required
Mm,
them to have movement. But if you truly think about the words that were often or told to us by people who were in generations before us, it was often gentle, sometimes not gentle reminders to sit down somewhere, right? To find a place to be quiet. Those were the things that I remember people in my community, especially older people growing up, telling me to
mm,
do. It wasn't always to do something, it was often to not do something. So
yeah.
even in that, rest is just such a huge part of um I feel like it's not that it wasn't there. I just feel
Mhm.
like people missed it, right? They
Yeah.
missed it. That's one of those huge lessons that we should have, and that it rest is not laziness. And we have to keep reminding people that it truly is leadership.
Mhm.
And I feel like there were so many people before us that understood that and may not have had the words specifically to connect those two things together, but they understood that rest was necessary in order to build. Rest
Yeah.
was necessary in order to do the next steps. Rest was necessary.
Yeah.
Ah,
'Cause can you imagine how difficult it can be to be a leader, to be a mother, and being asked to do so much for different people, whether it's to nurture me, take care of me, pray for me, walk with me, all these things, and not be rested?
mhm.
I can
Yes.
I cannot imagine to be so much to so many people and not give myself the audacity to just rest, because we know in rest we find clarity. I wouldn't dare ask someone to pray for me that I see always is unrested. Because where does the clarity come to even know what to pray for me about, right? If and I think in my paternal grandmother was an intercessory prayer warrior, and she prayed on people's behalf all the time. And I think about, if I have to constantly pray for people, I have to constantly be in a space of clarity,
Yep.
right? And clarity comes from rest, whatever that rest form looks like.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I ever saw my grandmother work like, oh my God, just sit down. So I don't think I would ever have. I've never seen her in that space where I thought, why don't she just sit down? Why don't she just take a vacation? I don't think I have, because she created her life
Mhm.
fundamentally around this idea of rest, because she
Mhm.
know rest was attached to God. And if I'm a servant of God, if I'm God's child, and rest is attached to God, then I have to rest to do what He's called me to do. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's it's a
Absolutely.
very serene
Absolutely.
space, very serene space. Yeah.
Here's the thing, because both of us have kind of pointed out some of the positive influences of rest that we had in our life, right? And I know for sure we don't take that we don't take that lightly at all, because there may have been, there are other people who may not have been surrounded by at least one key person who valued rest, right? And the thing that I really want people to hear today, that even if your mom never rested, you you can change that, right? You may feel guilt around resting because you didn't see it done, but you have the ability to change that posture. Matter of fact, especially if you have children, it to me is for you to rest now so that your children don't have to recover from a negative relationship with rest that you've modeled for them, right?
Mhm.
That's the leadership that we're talking about in motherhood. Um, my goodness, it's just to me so important for people to see rest modeled positively and understand that hard work still happens, right? Like there's still gonna be work that happens. There's still lots of things. I know you and I both have a lot of things that are constantly on our plate, but we don't allow those things to kind of knock rest out of the way for it to become a reward. We understand that it's something that's honored and not earned.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about you know, this past week, working, with the client, and you being in North Carolina, and my role was more observing the space and while you were facilitating. And during one of the breaks, I went outside. I think it was a bit nippy or something inside. So, just to wake up your bones. And walking outside, and there was one of the ladies that was part of the participant group, and we were just sitting outside by the fireplace and talking about this idea of, she had retired and then came back to work, but she, had a sense of rest in those periods of time. And it was just in that moment for me, it was, even in the midst of working, we found a time to just rest socially, right? And to the point where it was like, hey, we getting ready. And it was like,
Mhm.
oh, already? Time to go back in already. And I think those pockets, even during times of work, we don't recognize that that's part of rest because it refuels us, right? And so gave us the energy to keep going. And she was very, excited about what you were doing, and what the event was about. And that little moment of rest just refueled it even more, right? And so I think about when you see people, you can kind of look at someone and tell they're unrested in this moment. How can you, someone who understands rest, strategic rest, can be a source of rest for them in that moment, even if it's just 5 minutes, right? Because it has to become a habit.
Mhm.
And most people begin to pick up habits when they see other people doing it. And sometimes someone's permission to rest is rested upon your invitation for them to rest.
Ooh, ex- that's what. That's what fell. The minute you said that, you connected a concept to me that I never even thought of. Right, when it comes to rest. So I listen. I'm a facilitate. Okay, that's what we do. All right, I'm gonna have a session and it's gonna be high energy, but I never thought about the fact that even when you love something, even when you're having a good time, just like you said, that lady said, oh, I'm having a good time, that rest can enhance that. that literally breaks throughout the facilitations that I do with clients, are even for their own like enjoyment, right? That even when you're enjoying what's happening, even when you're doing the work that you're called to do, even in that, the space that you create to rest can do nothing more than enhance what happens next, right? It brings you back more focused, more excited to continue to do something that you're enjoying to do. So rest is not only for when you're not enjoying something, when you're working on a project that you hate, so you're taking a break. It also is for things that you love, so that you have even more to pour in when you come back to the table. Oh my goodness, that just connected for me, that is a gift that we're giving or inviting people, like you always say. I love that you use the phrase, the inviting people to do. But yeah, man, just even when you're loving something, that rest can enhance it is wild to me. And I had not thought about that, even as someone who practices strategic rest, until this very moment connected those concepts.
Yeah, I think earlier in some of the episodes we talked about the show's what is it, Steel Magnolias? Uh
Ah,
it, um
beautiful.
and and
Is it still Magnolia? Well, we know still Magnolias, but what's our Magnolias?
yeah, oh gosh, Sweet Magnolias is the TV
Sweet.
show.
That's
Yeah,
it.
but the Steel is the movie. And yesterday I was able to be with some of my Sweet Magnolias as
Come
we'll
on,
call
pour it out. Y'all
them.
got to
And
pour it out.
yeah, and it was and they're my sorors who've become real sisters and real friends to me. And when we went to her house, and I don't know if she's watching, shout out to April, had just done some renovations and got this really nice, screened in patio. And I love to be outdoors. It's just something about nature. And I came over and went straight outside because she had been hyping it up, showing pictures, and I was like, I could live out here. I mean, it's big enough for a living room, a bed, put a little refrigerator out there. If
Not
I
a little
need to
mini
go
fridge.
inside, it was just beautiful, right? And we just sat there and talked and listened to music, and it was in that, and we did that for a good 4 hours maybe. And I was just like, this is not only rest, but this is what life feels like for me. It feels like opportunities to allow myself to just be, not always be the one talking,
Mm,
um, and sometimes not always being the one listening, just being um, in nature. And I had one of the things that I told them was, what I love about being outside is it's so still, and I get to hear things that I would have never heard before because I was ripping and running, right?
yes.
And they create that space. And I think it's really important. We talk about this often, being around people who create the spaces that you often cannot create alone. And being in community with those folks. And so it was just a very refreshing. I mean, honestly, I could have fell asleep if it wasn't for having a dog that I had to get back home to. I could have just fell asleep out there and woke up and then went home, right? It was just so serene, so peaceful. And we laughed, and we ate, and it was just, those are the moments that I want more of. I don't
Mm,
need more moments of having to ripping down a road, to hop on a plane often to go somewhere to get that. I can get that in the backyard somewhere. It's just,
yeah.
how do you create spaces? And so one of the things that I invite people into is, how do you create, once you identify what rest looks like for you, what you want that to look like, how do you create that even when you have limited resources? How do you create that even when you have limited time? And it doesn't always have to be, I have to get away, because that was my thought. Oh, I gotta go somewhere. I gotta get out of here. And when I went there, I was like, actually, I didn't even have to go but 30 minutes to get what I need. And now I'm refueled to wake up and be like, okay, let's get this day started. So I want to shout out my Birch Haven crew in April for her hospitality always. So yeah, thank you for giving me
I,
rest.
I love. Thanks for giving her rest, y'all. Look at that shout out. Growth is understanding that rest is not selfish.
Mhm,
It is sacred.
mhm.
Rest is not selfish, and it often includes other people who are special to us. The people who you can feel rested around are absolute gifts.
Mhm.
Absolute gifts. To be in a space and to just be yourself is something that so many people don't experience because it requires vulnerability. It
Right.
requires you being that kind of person to somebody else. It requires understanding that conflict, that you can have conflict with people, come back from it, and they could become even safer than what you ever expected. We have to do the work, and that's sometimes hard. But when we do the work to create those kind of connections, right? Because they
Mhm.
can look in all different kind of ways. But when we do the work to create those connections, it's in order for us to experience something that no money can buy.
Yeah.
No money can buy the peace of being in the presence of people who allow you to be able to feel rested.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are leaving this world left and right every single day. And I
Mm,
think, you know, it's kind of like until something tragic happens, then we want to talk about, oh, we need to spend more time together, rest, and that works for about 2 months, and then we back at it again, right? And so, I'm always in a constant space of, being mindful of the people and the energy I keep, and how that aligns to this idea of strategically resting in spaces and places. Um, I want to rest here, right?
mm,
Because when I'm gone, I don't know that I'm rested. So I want to rest here, whatever that looks like. And so, you know, having the summit, the strategic rest summit, I'm looking forward to the people who've taken the heed to say, hey, I need rest in different aspects of my life, not just in the workplace, but at home with my friends, with my kids, just with me. And I don't know where to begin. And so the people who come to the summit, not only do they get to know where to begin, but they get to know how to continue it even after the time we have together. So I'm excited for those who come. I'm excited for what I'm going to pick up and learn from folks in that space. And yeah, I'm just excited for as a woman of faith, I'm just excited for how God continues to move, even in spaces of being uncomfortable, even in spaces of, oh, I want it this way, but you're gonna get it this way and still have to work with it. So I'm in a space of God, I'm truly just trusting you, right?
mm,
And if it's just one person, if it's 10 people, if it's 100 people, regardless of how many people, I know because of my trust in
mm.
him, and that in having bold faith that whatever is supposed to occur in that space, it will, and we'll all be better for it. So I hope people, accept the invitation for
Yes,
the summit to attend, and or get the book and continue to watch us, because of the legacy, the movement that this is shifting for folks. And I think if we're able to sit here and reflect on life in terms of, oh, I didn't realize that was rest, I can only imagine other people sitting thinking, oh, looking at it differently now.
absolutely. Well, I can't believe it, but it's been 30 minutes, so it's time for us to head out. So as we end this, I want you every year on Mother's Day, if you're however it is, right? We often thank our mothers for things that they did for us. But one of the things that if you had a mother that modeled rest for you in a positive way, I want you to thank her for that. This today. I want you to thank her for doing that. But even if your mother did not necessarily, or the woman figure in your life did not necessarily model rest in the best way, I need you to understand that she did the best she had with what she did the best she could with what she had, right? However, you do not have to carry that same burnout badge. It can stop today. It will stop today if you choose to take that. What did Dr. K say? That posture, right? So we want to invite you always. We leave this space always inviting you to take the posture of practicing strategic rest. Make good decisions. We'll see you guys back here Sunday, every Sunday, like we always do, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week and love on your mama if you can. Bye.
Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.